done for making it this far. We are in the home stretch now, and I need my clicker. Thank you very much. So you've got myself and Greg to start that drive home tonight. Simon Mayo, we're standing in for him. So my name's Paul Brassington, for those of you who haven't met me. I'm very fortunate to be joined on stage by Gregg Widdowson from Avaya. Greg is a digital engagement expert. So what I'm going to try and do is touch upon some of the themes and some of the topics that we've kind of talked about during today. Greg's going to help talk about some of the things that Avaya are doing to address some of the challenges that some of those topics are creating. So, without further ado, just sticking on the Simon Mayo theme, 3 words for this kind of short session. So, platforms, processes, and people. I'm going to start off with platforms. So, sticking with the driving theme, very briefly, so this is a Model T Ford. Stu touched upon this a little bit earlier. I've chosen the Model T Ford to start the presentation because it's quite topical, actually. When this car was launched, it was arguably the first affordable car for the masses, and it really opened up car ownership to a lot of people. From its initial launch, it was considered an outstanding success. Within days, it had sold 15,000, had left the kind of factory, and it went on to sell about 16.5 million in total. So I guess the point that I was kind of looking to make here was let me getting confused. So why topical? So today, 102 years ago, the 1 millionth Model T Ford rolled out of the factory. It's a shame this event wasn't in 2015 because then it would have been exactly 100 years. But nevertheless, the 1 millionth Model T Ford rolled out of the factory. But despite the kind of outstanding success that the car was deemed to be at the time, it still took 7 years for 1 million to kind of reach the market. The first one was made in about 1908. So to 1915, it took us 7 years to get to 1 million. You can see where I'm going with this. This device needs no introduction. When Apple launched the watch in 2015, it reached 1 million sales within the first 6 hours, and that was during a pre-launch. The product hadn't even been launched at this stage. So they kind of hit that figure within 6 hours of a pre-launch event. And this is a trend that's been steadily increasing over a few years. We kind of seen it right back to 2002, right through to 2015. So this isn't something that's new that's happening. When I talk about platforms, I'm not just talking about physical devices as well. The proliferation and adoption that we're seeing within the platform space applies to both kind of apps and messaging apps, as well as physical devices like phones and tablets. In February of this year, WhatsApp celebrated its 8th birthday. Now, at that time, there were 1.2 billion users worldwide of WhatsApp. That's since gone up to 1.3 in July. And these are incredible numbers. You know, we talk about millions and billions in the same way as my 6-year-old boy kind of learns his 3 times table at school. But, you know, so what's 100 million between friends? Broadly speaking, you know, WhatsApp is just a messaging tool. You know, essentially it's SMS on steroids. In reality, I could have talked about a whole bunch of messaging apps, or any apps come to that. I specifically chose WhatsApp for a very specific reason, and that's because last month, some of you have probably seen this in the news, but WhatsApp launched their closed beta for their business app. So as people start to use these apps at home and within social environments, they start to get more familiar with the technology. It becomes convenient. And naturally, people want to use that technology to engage with organizations. They use them to stay in touch with friends and family. So they obviously want to kind of try and use the same tools that they're familiar with to reach out and connect with organizations. And WhatsApp obviously recognized this. They saw that people were starting to use WhatsApp to keep in touch with local businesses to track an order or place an order or schedule an appointment. And obviously, they also identified there was probably a commercial opportunity there for them to kind of tap into. But, you know, they've cited examples of businesses small businesses trying to keep in touch with hundreds of customers just using a single kind of smartphone app and using WhatsApp. And that's a very crude method of doing it. What WhatsApp are trying to do through the kind of business app that they're now launching is give businesses the opportunity to create an authenticated profile and allow customers to recognize and acknowledge that that's a registered business, and also kind of use the tools and platforms that they've become comfortable with in terms of the way they conduct life outside of business and contacting friends and family. Now, I picked this stat up. This was a year ago, actually, so October last year. Now, 100 million, again, a kind of insignificant number, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. That's kind of around about 1% of the worldwide population. So whilst that doesn't sound like a massive number, the point here is that is from zero. So again, what we're seeing is incredible adoption rates. The number of VR headsets that shipped in the first quarter of this year, so January to March 2017, was around 2.3 million. It's currently on track to have its greatest year on record. We're looking at kind of double growth on the number of headsets that were shipped last year. And I think probably the point here is that devices such as these are offering people the opportunity to have a unique experience. There's no point in using a device such as this if you can get the same experience through another channel that is more convenient to access. So L'Oreal have got an app out at the moment which provides an augmented reality opportunity for customers. People use it to try on products, to try out looks that the expert makeup artists at L'Oreal have created themselves. And once they're in that environment, they can kind of share those looks within a social forum. So they can share their looks with friends and they can get feedback. And it's a kind of completely immersive experience. And the key point here is that obviously L'Oreal allow you to buy their products within that environment. So the transaction event is occurring closest to its the emotional height that somebody would get whilst they're in the application. I've not personally got any experience of using this, but I'm sure it's a great app. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is a quote from Tim Cook quite recently about how he believes virtual and augmented reality is going to be on a par with the iPhone launch. And that's a very bold statement. Only yesterday I saw Mark Zuckerberg announce in Silicon Valley to an audience at a conference about the launch of Oculus Go, which again, this kind of comes back to the affordable technology for the masses, right back to the Model T Ford comment that I made a little bit earlier. This is going to be the cheapest entry point VR headset, Facebook have made the statement that they're looking to get 1 billion people within an augmented or virtual reality environment. So strong words. So on that point, I should bring Gregg into the conversation. With all of these platforms, and when I talk about platforms, I'm talking devices and I'm talking about applications, growing and being adopted at such incredible rates, obviously that's going to create challenges for businesses to kind of manage that. How are Avaya kind of working to support businesses in addressing those challenges?
Sure. So we Avaya recognized this trend a few years ago, and so what we did at that point is we introduced our own application platform, which we call Avaya Breeze, to allow customers like yourselves and partners to actually be able to add this functionality into their existing systems without replacing and replacing anything that they already have. So Avaya Breeze allows us to add in these new channels into your existing environments. Anything that's new that comes along, it has the flexibility to allow you to create that functionality and add it in without having to wait for Avaya to come along with a new version of a product or wait for even our partners to come along with that. If you have the skills in-house, and these are all modern, open, standards-based skills that are required, then you can actually do this. Now, not only do we provide you with that flexibility, but we actually use that flexibility ourselves. So the other thing that we recognize as well is that not all of our customers want to do this themselves. Sometimes they want to buy a product which provides all of those features, all these different channels like SMS or like Facebook Messenger, social media, even things like virtual reality. They want all of that in a nice shrink-wrap product. So we've also used Breeze ourselves for our own product development, and we've created our new omni-channel or digital customer engagement platform, Oceana, which uses exactly this and allows you to take advantage of all of those great new digital channels all in one easy-to-deploy product set. But we also know that certain customers have already taken a dip in the water with digital, so they may already have some investments out there that they're wanting to continue to use. So again, Breeze is flexible and open enough to allow you to do that. So if you've already got a web chat vendor that you have a contract with, then you can actually integrate that into Breeze and bring that into your Avaya environment. So that's where we're looking at. We're trying to make it as open as it possibly can, as flexible, but also as extensible as possible. So we don't know what's in the future, but Breeze allows you to take advantage when it gets there.
Okay, thanks, Greg. So I guess the next point that I wanted to come on to is with the adoption of so many different platforms, and again, I'm referring to devices, and I'm referring to messaging apps and tools through which people can communicate with other people, whether it's in a social environment or in a business-based environment. There is a tendency to kind of use whatever is most convenient at that point in time. So, we all live busy lives. We're all kind of rushing from one place to another. Familiarity and convenience are really the key drivers in terms of the kind of tools and the platforms that we tend to use. There is another part to it, and that is the kind of drive to digitize is invariably creating challenges for consumers as they try to engage with organizations. So digitized processes allow people typically to get so far along a journey, and they sort of suit specific use cases and scenarios. But sometimes, people hit a dead end in that scenario, and there is a tendency at that point to shift and jump channels. I saw this quote a few weeks ago, and I kind of think it rings true here. And it touches back on the point that Dan Whaley made a little bit earlier about time being finite. With a finite amount of time available to us, convenience tends to drive as the decisions that we make, particularly when we're looking to do transactional type interactions. So from a consumer point of view, obviously, we've all got a device in the palm of our hands. It gives us dozens of different ways of interacting with organizations, potentially. And the way that we typically tend to choose is the one that we envisage will give us the fastest, the most efficient, frictionless engagement with that business. And it's all about the moment. And these are some of the challenges that I think the businesses are facing as a consequence of that. How do we track the adoption of new platforms, and how do we assess the suitability of the platforms that we want to use to allow consumers to engage with us? How do we promote the preferred platforms, and how do we orchestrate journeys across those different platforms? And this is all against a kind of backdrop of wanting to maintain excellent customer or brilliant customer service, even through monitoring activity, positively looking to proactively reach out to organizations and make their customer experience the best it can possibly be. And also monitor what's happening in social forums as well, and positively look to influence the views that are being posted on in social environments. Fundamentally, as we naturally provide more choice and we provide more digitized routes in terms of the customer journey, more platforms invariably lead to more fragmentation within the customer journey. So I guess, Greg, at this point, again, how can Avaya help organizations in orchestrating, influencing, tracking customers as they potentially shift between channels and make that journey a little bit more painless for the end consumer?
Okay, so again, back to the application platform, Breeze. Another element of that platform is that it can also react to events that are happening on other platforms. So that could be in this particular instance, we've got a basket abandoned on an e-commerce platform. Or it could be an event which is happening in your business processes in the back office, or even maybe capturing an event from an IoT device which is in the customer's home. Breeze can react to those events, and it can use that to join the journey together. So we can proactively reach out to the customer at these particular points, rather than waiting for the customer to then contact us before we do move on to the next step. We can actually react to those events, use the information we have about the customer that we've been tracking throughout the customer journey, and proactively reach out to them. So again, we're moving away from this disjointed step-by-step process and actually joining them together. Okay. And if we are proactive as well, the likelihood is that we could save that sale, we can improve that customer service rather than waiting for the customer to always contact us.
Okay, great. So the last area that I wanted to talk briefly about was delivering the kind of seamless experience across all of the platforms. So we've established that availability and convenience allows customers to essentially jump channels based on preference, a moment in time, or whether they can't complete something that they were looking to complete. Maybe they've got halfway down a process and the process doesn't support their specific scenario in order to allow them to complete that transaction. So this leads to a challenge around providing a contextual journey for customers to remain on, and also avoiding kind of dead ends that people invariably meet along the way. So, and I guess this is against the backdrop of within businesses and environments where I've kind of seen organizations work, trying to maintain operational efficiency. So to support people as they kind of jump channels, as they kind of weave their journey through a variety of different platforms, to kind of do so in an efficient way within the contact center environment. So I guess there are two parts to the challenge. There's the allowing the seamless transition, and that's the seamless transition, I guess, from digital, whether it's digital self-service or some digital engagement form, into a human-assisted service. And then the second part is really empowering agents. So giving agents the context of a journey that somebody's potentially been on, giving them the knowledge, giving them the visibility of who that person is and what their kind of potential challenge is. So kind of brings me on to a final question. So for the last time, Greg, how can Avaya help businesses in terms of creating these seamless journeys for customers, ensuring that customers can move from the digital world potentially into the voice world, if the challenge becomes emotive to the end customer, and at the same time empower agents really to kind of give them the support that they need in order to fulfill the customer's needs.
So, not surprising, you won't be surprised to hear this is all part and parcel of the application platform and Breeze. One of the functionalities that we have available in Breeze and also in Oceana is to track context and track the customer journey. So as the customer moves through that journey, whether it be over a matter of minutes or a matter of days, possibly even weeks, we know exactly what's happened at each step. And that information can then be used to not only track the journey, but also close that gap and make a seamless experience. So for example, if we were going from a chatbot, and we're on the website, we're on a web chat, we're interacting with a chatbot, but at that point we then need to be moved over to assisted service. Well, with the context that we're storing, we can actually then pass the entire transcript over to the agent. Not only can they see what's been going on with the chatbot, but also by capturing every stage of the journey, they can actually visualize that journey on the screen. So not only are we collecting this and using it to be able to join the dots, but then when we pass it through to an agent, the agent gets to see exactly what you see on that screen there. So they can see every stage of that journey. They can click into each of these icons and see exactly what's happened. So again, all of a sudden, rather than having to ask the same questions to the customer all over again, they now have that information at their fingertips. So they can speed up. It's just one conversation. It's not stop-start of multiple different transactions. So that's how Breeze and Oceana is aiding the overall customer journey by bringing that information together and then providing the tools to the agent so they have one place to go, not only to see the customer history and the journey, but also everything they need to handle that interaction at that point in time.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. So I just briefly wanted to summarize. We've kind of looked at 3 different challenges, really, that organizations are facing today. We talked about platforms, we talked about the adoption rates of platforms, and the speed at which they get into market, and how organizations are best able to deal with those, that proliferation of platforms. We've talked about processes and the resulting fragmented customer journeys that are occurring, I guess, from that proliferation of platforms, and also how digitized processes are impacting that whole journey as well. And we've also talked about people. So, how those journeys from the kind of digital self-service world into the human-assisted world, how we empower agents with the visibility, the contextual information, and the knowledge to be able to support those customers in the right way, maintaining brilliant customer service. So I guess at this point, and I'd just like to say thank you to Gregg for sharing with us some of the innovative and exciting work that Avaya have been doing over the last couple of years, really, to kind of start to address some of these problems that organizations are facing. So all that it leaves me to say is thank you very much from myself and Gregg for listening today. Thank you.